Hello, my name is Morgan Jones, and I will be talking about biodiversity and endangered species. Specifically, what biodiversity is and what causes an animal to become endangered and how to prevent it. You have probably seen commercials of polar bears and their melting ice caps and what one can do to help. Coca-Cola started one of these campaigns, donating money for every can sold to help the polar bears. Coca-Cola teamed up with the World Wildlife Federation to raise $3 million from 2007 to 2010 to preserve polar bears and many other endangered species habitats in the Arctic. Other organizations like the Ducks Unlimited work towards conserving land for waterfowl to live naturally. This effort started in 1937 when the Dust Bowl that plagued the Midwest caused waterfowl numbers to decrease dramatically. But why do these organizations exist? What makes them necessary? First, let us define what exactly biodiversity means and what makes a species endangered. According to the World Wildlife Federation, biological diversity, or biodiversity, is the term given to the variety of life on Earth. It is a variety within and between all species of plants, animals, and microorganisms, and the ecosystems within which they live and interact. Biodiversity can be explored at three different levels: genetic diversity, which is diversity within a species; species diversity, which is diversity within a specific region; and finally, ecosystem diversity, diversity within an ecosystem. A lack of balance in biodiversity can cause a kink in the food web or genetics, and will ultimately change that ecosystem, region, or species. When a species becomes extinct, it takes the species out of its ecosystem, disrupting the natural order of this and causing decline in genetic, species, and ecosystem diversity. Extinction is defined as a situation in which something no longer exists, according to the Cambridge Dictionary. An example of this is the woolly mammoth, an animal that went extinct about 4,300 years ago. However, before an animal becomes extinct, it becomes endangered. The Cambridge Dictionary defines endangered as animals or plants that may soon not exist because there are few now alive. More specifically, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature uses these criteria to decide if a species is threatened. As you can see, it's not so black and white if an animal is endangered or not. That is why these 7 categories were created. The first category is the least concern category. These species are far from becoming endangered as they have a thriving population. Next is the near threatened category. While there is no dramatic decrease in population at this time, it is very plausible these species could be threatened if nothing is changed. After near threatened, there is the vulnerable species. There is a 30 to 50% decrease in population and will likely be extinct in the wild 10% within the next 100 years. Then we have the endangered species category, where 50 to 70% of the population has decreased, and 20% of the species will be extinct in 20 years. Critically endangered is next. Approximately 80 to 90% of the population has declined, and 50% will be gone within 10 years. After that, a species will be categorized as extinct in the wild. These species only exist in zoos or other captivities. Finally, a species can become extinct if no animals in the species exist anymore. There are multiple reasons why animals become endangered, and these reasons can be vastly different. The largest reason, according to Michael Hogan, a physicist with over 2,200 peer-reviewed articles, is habitat loss. Habitat loss can be from deforestation, global warming, loss of breeding ground, or pollution. Deforestation affects multiple species, but has the greatest effect on those who inhabit the Amazon rainforest. 17% of the rainforest has been lost in the last 50 years. A giant panda is a species that is endangered because of deforestation in China. Perhaps one of the most well-known reasons for loss of habitat is global warming. The melting of the ice caps have affected polar bears, sea lions, and many other Arctic animals as their feeding grounds and environments are disappearing. Another loss of habitat is loss of breeding ground. The African penguin uses their guano to hide their eggs before they hatch. Because of their guano being a useful fertilizer, it is being harvested, leaving the penguins to leave their eggs susceptible to predators. Finally, pollution causes a loss of habitat, especially for marine animals. Pollution causes not only garbage patches in the ocean, but also creates dead zones. Dead zones have algae blooms that release toxins that kill fish and other marine life. Another prominent cause for endangerment is poaching. Poaching, in the simplest terms, is to hunt illegally. Recently, the ivory trade has caused an increase in the poaching of rhinoceroses and elephants in Africa. A rhinoceros's horn can sell for $30,000 a pound, which is worth more than gold, and an elephant's tusk is around $1,000 a pound. These animals are killed only for their horns or tusks. Elephants are now considered vulnerable, and rhinoceroses are critically endangered. Finally, overfishing is a cause for endangerment. According to National Geographic's, overfishing is simply the taking of wildlife from the sea at rates too high for fish species to replace themselves. Overfishing is not only threatens the species that is being taken, but the species that consumes the fish to survive. In order to lower the rates of species on the endangered species list, President Richard Nixon signed the Endangered Species Act of 1973. This act authorizes the determination and listing of species as endangered and threatened, prohibits unauthorized taking, possession, sale, and transport of endangered species, provides authority to acquire land for the conservation of listed species using land and water conservation funds, authorizes establishment of cooperative agreements and grants and aid to states that establish and maintain active and adequate programs for endangered and threatened wildlife and plants, authorizes the assessment of civil and criminal penalties for violating the acts or regulations, and finally authorizes the payment of rewards to anyone furnishing information leading to the arrest and conviction for any violation of the act or any regulation issued thereunder. In 1988, this act was revised and now requires a 5-year monitoring program for the species that have been removed from the endangered species list and many other amendments. These laws will be implemented no matter what country the animal comes from. That way, the United States will hold those under the jurisdiction of the United States responsible. There have been successes through the years. Species that have grown in number so much that they are no longer considered endangered. Just this year, the manatee will be removed from the endangered species list thanks to the work the Endangered Species Act enforced. The manatee was first added to the list in 1972. Today, the manatee population has grown 500%. Also this year, a species has come back from extinction. A quagga, a cousin to the zebra, had gone extinct in the 1980s. Scientists today have used genetics from zebras to bring back the species through selective breeding. It will take time, but the species will thrive and come back from extinction. While there have been many successes, there's still a long way to go to secure biodiversity. Many species are still endangered and some are extinct, impossible to get back. It is the responsibility of everyone to help protect these species. But monetary contributions isn't everything. Education and knowledge on why these animals are decreasing in population will make the public more conscious of how their everyday life will affect these animals. And through everyone's help, we can have more species like the manatee and the quagga.